Hi guys. Um, I hope you had a chance to look through the slides that come before this one and play the YouTube video attached to it that will explain that review. But let's go ahead and talk about what you're going to be adding to your interactive notebook. So we're continuing with page 6 and 7. So I know this looks like a lot, but it's only because there's a lot of color and stuff to it. But we are going to review this thought or this idea of life process. There are 7 of them. And pretty much, if you just tell yourself if it's alive, it does these 7 things. Okay, so remember, I've spoken to you before about biology being the study of all living things, and that includes plants and animals. We are all living things. And so, if it is living, again, it does these things. It needs to do these things in order to survive. Okay, really good video right here that you can watch. And there's here, Does It Poop? It's a song about the 7 characteristics, which is quite entertaining. But let's talk about these 7 processes. The first one is nutrition. If something is alive, plant or animal, it needs to get nutrition. It needs to get food. Remember, animals either um, eat plants, animals, other animals, or both to get their nutrition. They are called heterotrophs. For plants, they have to make their own food from the sun, and they're called autotrophs. Another process that if things are living that they do, it is that they reproduce. And they have to reproduce, or else whatever organism it is, there would be no more. Okay, so that's another really important function. Excretion. If you eat, you must excrete. If you eat, you have to get rid of the waste. Everything from the air you breathe to the food you eat, you can't use every part of that. So your body has to get rid of it or else it poisons it. So all living things take in nutrition and respiration and other things, but they have to get rid of the parts they can't use. Growth. All living things grow. Even though there are some living things that are super tiny, they do grow. They do show some growth. Movement. All living things move. We see tiny little bacteria that have flagella and they're able to swim. We see plants that, like sunflowers, that face the east when the sun is coming up and move all the way to the west when the sun sets. So, yes, plants move as well. Respiration. So, respiration has to deal in humans and animals, for instance. It deals with taking in oxygen and then getting rid of it, the CO2. So we think of respiration sort of like breathing, and we can apply that. We take in the oxygen, we get rid of the carbon dioxide. But when you take in oxygen, the reason you do it is because it helps break down the food uh, molecules that you've eaten. That oxygen is vital in helping to break down that food and make it into energy for your body, and plants do the same thing. Sensitivity. If an organism is living, it reacts to light or touch. Even some lowly worms that can't see and stuff. If you poke them with something, they'll turn away from wherever that whatever's causing that pain or light. And you've seen, cockroaches. You turn on the light and they run. They're sensitive to the light because they know that means that they could get eaten. And we as humans and a lot of and most animals, have senses of touch and smell, sight, hearing, etc. that we use them for good reason. A lot of that is to keep us alive for all kinds of reasons. Okay, so if an organism is living, it does all of these things. Rocks do not do these things. Rocks do not reproduce or take in nutrition, neither does air. Those things are not living things. So I want you to go ahead and write these notes into your notebook. I know it may seem like a lot, but it really isn't. I want you to draw this as best you can, your hamburger, a baby, and so forth, into your notebook. And again, watch this movie. It has to do with the seven life processes and this cool song on the processes as well. On page number 7, so here we have page 6, here we have page 7. On page 7, we're going to review what some of the terms you learned in 6th grade having to do with cells, types of cells. So in 6th grade, you learned that there were unicellular cells, and remember, uni means one. So this whole organism is just one cell. And a great example is bacteria. Multicellular organisms, on the other hand, are made of many, many cells. So multi means many, and examples are plants and animals. You talked about autotrophs. Oh, and there is a film that goes with that. You talked about autotrophs and heterotrophs. Auto means self. These are organisms that make their food by themselves, like plants make their food from the sun, called glucose. Heterotrophs, we have to eat other organisms, and by organisms, I mean plants or animals, to be able to survive. And animals are a good example of that. And the last term that you learned was prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Remember, pro equals no. There's no nucleus. It still does have DNA. It still does have genes, but they're just floating around loosey goosey in the cell. They're usually just one cell, unicellular, and bacteria are a great example of prokaryotic cells. On the other hand, we have eukaryotic cells, and this is what we are going to continue to study from this point forward, are eukaryotic cells. These are cells that have a nucleus, and inside the nucleus, you have the chromosomes, the DNA, whatever word you've learned for the genetic material. Okay? Multicellular organisms like plants and animals are made of cells that contain a nucleus that is covered by this membrane. It has a covering over it that holds all that DNA inside that and together. Again, I want you to put this in your notebook, and you have enough time. Use a ruler to divide this out. You don't have to add anything for these videos in your notebook. You just need to watch them to give you better understanding of each of these terms, because we are going to continue to use them, especially eukaryotic cells. So that's all I have on page 6 and 7. Please add it to your notebook. There'll probably be a notebook check at the end of the week for another grade, but you can do this slowly and make your notebook look great. Alrighty, we'll see you later. Bye bye.